We have a housing crisis and have had a housing crisis in this country for some time. And the reason we have a housing crisis in this country is because Fianna Fáil crashed the economy in 2008, decided to stop building houses, had no foresight whatsoever, allowed our construction workers to leave this country and to go elsewhere. And now we've got excess of 17,000 people in homeless accommodation, including 5,000 children, and that's not counting all the families that don't access emergency accommodation, those that are sleeping in our streets, those that are sleeping in their parents' bathrooms, on sofas of their friends, or, and then all the numbers who are just emigrating because they can't afford to live here. And I mean, you talk about constituents coming into your offices and telling you the stories. You have the power to do something about it, but you're not doing it. You're making the situation 10 times worse. Evictions in the first 3 months of this year are up by 51%. In my own county of Cavan, 77 evictions in the first 3 months of the year. 77 in a county like Cavan. 111 families presented as homeless so far this year in my county. And that's a mixture of families, of couples and of single people. And 29 of those families or households had to access emergency accommodation. Now, I have to commend Cavan County Council. They will do their utmost to try and house people and avoid them having to go into emergency accommodation and try and help them find a rental. But it is difficult. It's getting more difficult to actually find rentals that people can afford to live in. And rents are continuing to rise. So people who are facing eviction and are maybe been in a house renting it for a number of years at a reasonable rent, and suddenly they're evicted because, perhaps the person that owns the house, it was their retirement policy, that's fine, they want to sell the house and enjoy their retirement, or maybe they have a family member who needs the home. Whatever the reason is, when those families are evicted, they have nowhere to go. The rents have risen by 4.5% again in the first 3 months of the year. And in Cavan is one of 6 counties that has double-digit rent inflation on last year, is 10.6%. And the average now for a 2-bed apartment is $1,245. And I was contacted by a person who was looking for a rental property. There was an unfurnished 2-bedroom apartment in a rural area of the county, and it was advertised as €1,100. And when they inquired, they were told, oh no, actually it's $1,750 unless you're in receipt of the ARP. I mean, why would you, first of all, charge that amount of money for a 2-bedroom unfurnished apartment in the middle of rural Cavan? Secondly, why would you advertise it falsely as being for a price of $1,100? I mean, as the person said to me, the situation is causing huge resentment and division within communities, people feeling they're being treated differently depending on what supports they qualify. And as she goes on to say, regardless of nationality or background, the reality is the housing system is failing everyone trying to rent privately, and I absolutely agree with her. There's over 1,000, I think 1,157 on the housing list in Cavan at the moment. Again, most of them have to wait years before they're housed by the social authority. They have to rent privately. They get the assistance of HAP, but they can't find a landlord who will accept HAP. They end up either moving in with parents, accessing emergency accommodation, or leaving the country. And those then that are over the threshold for social housing, but still don't earn enough to be able to get a mortgage, they're caught completely. They have no supports whatsoever, and they can't find a place to rent that they can afford. And again, they're faced with the situation of moving in with parents again, or leaving the country. So we need a lot more social housing. We need a lot more affordable housing on a large scale. I mean, the act that was sold to us that came into being in March, we were told was a short-term pain for a long-term gain. But people are suffering for a long time. It's not a short-term gain. They're already suffering, and they can't suffer anymore. They cannot afford to pay colossal rents that continue to rise. And giving them sort of security within a rental that, if they can't afford it, what is the point? Absolutely everybody should attend in security, but if you cannot afford to rent in the first place, there is absolutely no point. So this is a never-ending cycle, and we need some proper policies here. We need a ban on no-fault evictions for a period of time until the government gets their act together to provide sufficient social and affordable housing for the people of this country. Thank you.